You're listening to Protecting What Matters by the Ohio Department of Commerce. Commerce is Ohio's chief regulator, and we play a vital role in keeping you safe by protecting your property, your money, and some of the products you use every day. This is designed to bring awareness to important issues and help educate consumers and businesses. Join us as we chat with trusted industry experts focused on providing you with the tools you need to help you protect what matters most in your life.
Fire safety does not have to be a hard thing. It doesn't have to be a time-consuming thing. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. It's just something that we need to constantly be aware of. It's in our everyday life to make sure that we're doing things the right way.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Protecting What Matters. I'm your host, Andy Ellinger, and today we are going to discuss spring cleaning, how it can impact you, your community, and the safety of Ohioans. We're going to be having that conversation with the State Fire Marshal's Fire Prevention Bureau. Joining me today is Dale Schulte, the Assistant Bureau Chief for the Division of State Fire Marshal Fire Prevention Bureau. How are you doing today, Dale?
I'm doing great, Andy. Thank you.
In the spirit of spring, a season synonymous with renewal and tidying up, the Division of State Fire Marshal's Fire Prevention Bureau takes the opportunity to remind residents of the critical importance of integrating fire safety measures into their spring cleaning routines. What inspired the Fire Prevention Bureau to emphasize spring cleaning as a crucial time for fire safety awareness, Dale?
Spring is always that time where we're ready to be outside, and starting to enjoy the nicer weather. Things are getting warmer. It's a good opportunity for us to think about all the things that we accumulated through the winter time and really just start to tidy things up, start to put things away in their place, get rid of excess material, those kind of things.
Explain to me how hoarding or excessive clutter, excessive storage in homes can pose a significant fire risk.
Right. So it's definitely a risk to Ohioans. Not only does it, increase the fire load, so you have more materials to burn, bigger fires, but it also can inhibit escape. It can block exits, block windows, block doors. It can make it harder to get out of your house in the event of a fire.
So what kind of steps should homeowners take to make sure that they mitigate those excessive storage risks?
The biggest thing is just to make sure that we are storing things in the proper places, return it to its place. We want to make sure our walkways are clear, our exits are clear. It's a good time also to take the window treatments off the windows. Some folks, they use the saran wrap type materials over the windows in the wintertime. We want to free that up, make sure they're able to open. They're operational. It's just a good time to check all that things out.
So it sounds like we're hearing that this excessive storage, this hoarding, could be a big problem. Are you seeing this in some of your incidents? Are you getting reports in that is becoming a problem for first responders?
While we don't have a direct way to track that on incident reports, we do hear by word of mouth, we do hear from the fire departments that that does contribute to increased fire load, does contribute to civilian fire casualties and such. We do get complaints of fire departments like, well, I wasn't able to use that exit because that one was blocked by stuff. And it really can be dangerous, not only to the occupants, but also the fire service, because, if things, go awry in the middle of a fire and they, try to get out of an exit and that exit's blocked, it's just going to make for a more difficult time for them.
Yeah, I can just imagine that a first responder gets to the scene and there's someone trapped in the house and they go open the door and they can't get through that house. So you already kind of mentioned, just how important it is to keep hallways and doorways clear and accessible. Just elaborate on how that simple action can just free up and enhance fire safety in your home. So,
if you think about the way a firefighter operates when they come in to look for somebody that's trapped in a fire, typically, you have decreased vision, you have a smoky environment, they can't see they're going to be trying to travel along the walls. They're going to try to be, have a place of reference to navigate from. And if those areas are, cluttered by excessive materials, they're not able to do that. They're not able to perform. It's going to slow down their response. It's going to make it more difficult for them to get through to find you. Not only that, but it's just, it is just going to be a frustration that, that maybe they don't need on that emergency scene. More materials to put out, it'll take more water, going to take more time. Just a lot of those things, and make it very difficult for the person inside to get out.
Yeah. I guess that's fuel for the fire.
It is definitely fuel.
Yeah. The guidelines recommend keeping items stored at least 3 to 4 feet away from a furnace or a hot water heater. How does this distance contribute to reducing the likelihood of a fire hazard?
So, that's anywhere, you talk about combustibles too close to heating sources, right? Whether that's a fireplace or whether that's our kitchen stove, right? We don't think about that, but, we want to keep things at least 3 feet away. Not only that, but keep children 3 feet away from those heat sources as well. A lot of our fires are caused by, combustible materials or too close to heat sources. So, if you follow that 3-foot rule, it's just kind of a safe guideline to try to protect yourself from that risk.
It's your money, come and claim it. The Ohio Department of Commerce Division of Unclaimed Funds is safeguarding nearly $4 billion in unclaimed funds. So there's a good chance you or someone you know has money waiting to be claimed. Just head over to our website, unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov, to search for your name, the name of a family member, or a loved one to see if you have an unclaimed fund.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing the State Fire Marshal's suggestions for spring cleaning and fire prevention. Let's get back to the conversation. We were inside the house. Let's go outside the house and discuss outdoor debris like branches, leaves. These could be potential fire risks. What are the best practices for Ohioans to safely dispose of such materials and protect their homes from these embers?
It's a good time. Just like I said, talked about cleaning up inside. It'd be a great time to also do the outside. Do we still have the Christmas lights hanging up? That's one of the concerns.
Uh-huh.
I know several folks that I might take them down until it gets warm outside. But we want to get those things down while we're there. Clean out the gutters. We want to remove any kind of leaf debris. Firewood that's close. Stored too close to the house. We want to move all that stuff away. So that in the event of a fire, we're not adding to the fuel load. We can, just kind of clean things up and also keep our windows and everything cleared for exits if we need to.
Maintaining our clothes dryers is mentioned as a critical practice. What common mistakes do people make with their dryers that increase fire risks, and how can that be avoided?
So that's one of the most, neglected things, right? Is we use our clothes dryer every day. We dry the clothes. We're pretty good at pulling the lint trap out, right?
Yeah.
But there's also a vent pipe that goes clear from your dryer all the way to the exterior of your house. That needs maintained as well. We should clean that out, make sure that that's not building up with lint. And it reminds me that I need to go home and do mine this spring as well, to get that all cleaned out, just in case we don't have that, have that dryer able to ventilate itself adequately, especially, the way it was built to.
Because that could cause a fire in the dryer. That could follow right out the vent.
Both. It could inhibit the dryer from venting that heat, because really that's what the vent pipe's for, right? Is to vent that heat away. So if that's blocked, it's not able to adequately vent itself. So it could become a fire. It could cause it to overheat and cause a fire inside your house. But then it also a path for the fire to go outside as well.
Now, electrical cords are a common household item, but can be dangerous. What signs should people look for to determine if an electrical cord might need replaced?
It's always good to, anytime you use electrical cord, look at the plugs, look at the ends. Do you have the ground plug, on it still?
Have you snapped that off?
Yeah. Is it popped off?
Uh-huh.
Is the insulation separated away from the plug? Should run your hands down the entire length of the cord. Make sure you don't have any wires showing, any nicks, abrasions, or anything like that in the cord. If you do, you really should just replace it. And get a new cord. Use one that's going to be more protected for you. And then also make sure if you're doing that, you're using the adequate size cord. That's one thing we typically don't consider. We just grab an extension cord as an extension cord. But if you look at the extension cord itself, there is a rating on there. You can't use a small cord for, say, something like a power tool. We want to make sure we're using the larger cord, that's rated for that, and it also has to do with distance. Different lengths of cord are able to, it's kind of like a garden hose, the longer the hose, the less pressure comes out the end. It's the same way. If you use too small of a cord for too big of a tool, it's going to cause it to overheat, and you run the risk of starting a fire.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with extension cords, but it's those pesky phone chargers, those cords. I don't think I get rid of those when I'm supposed to. Those fall under the same guidelines, correct?
They do. Though they're a lot lower voltage, it's still the same kind of risk. You can, a simple Google search or internet search will show you charger fires, especially in bed, right? Folks, they lay in bed and they fall asleep, and then they end up starting a fire in their bed because of the chargers. But it's a definite concern.
What about power strips? Anything we should know about power strips?
We should use a good UL listed power strip, Underwriters Laboratory. Those have been more stringently tested. It's good to have the the ones that will, if they're overloaded, they will trip out. But also keep in mind a power strip is just that. It's not designed to be using 7 things all at one time, because it's still going back into one outlet in the wall. So we want to be sure that, we're not overloading those. And by all means, please do not plug a power strip into a power strip. And it's called daisy chaining. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're, remember that's all going back to one single plug. It's not designed, for multiple things.
Very good. With the arrival of warm weather, many of us are starting to use our grills and our smokers. What are some essential maintenance tips for ensuring they don't pose a fire risk?
It's a good thing. I was just getting my grill out the other day to fire it up, and you want to open it up, make sure that you don't have a bird's nest in there. Check your propane, make sure your propane bottles are filled. Check for leaks. Did the hose crack did it freeze and crack during the winter time? You want to just check out your equipment before you fire it up to, start using it. And also be sure it's a safe distance away from the house. Try not to have it right up against the house, because if the grill flares up because you have too much grease, you're liable. You have run the risk of catching your house on fire.
And use that same 3-foot rule outside.
At least, inside. At least that. The more the better. You can never be. You can never have too much distance when you're talking. Your gas grill and things like that.
The improper use of storage of gasoline can lead to dangerous situations. What guidelines should homeowners follow to safely handle and store gasoline?
We want to make sure we're using the right container, for gasoline. Make sure it's labeled for gasoline and it's, designed for gasoline. Most folks don't know that there's different color gas cans for different color fuels. Diesel fuel's a yellow can, kerosene's a blue one, gasoline's a red one. A lot of folks don't know that. But we want to make sure that we are using the correct containers for that. We shouldn't, don't go out and get the old coffee can and store gas in that. It wasn't designed for that. Also, keep it away from any heat sources, right? Because, it's the vapors that will burn, right? So we want to make sure we have caps on them and we keep them away from heat sources, stored. In commercial applications, they usually say store them in a metal cabinet, to avoid any kind of heat source being close to that.
And then the nozzles are... the new nozzles are what we prefer now. So should homeowners be replacing older cans with the ones that are the mandated nozzles that are safer?
There's a definite safety factor there because they have the shutoffs, the secondary device there to protect for protection. It's definitely a good idea to utilize the more safer cans whenever you can.
Thanks for listening to Protecting What Matters. Cryptocurrency continues to be in the news. Stories of crypto millionaires have attracted some investors to try their hand at investing in cryptocurrencies or crypto-related investments. Our Division of Securities attorney John Criss reminds you that investing in cryptocurrency products can be risky.
And so if you are getting involved into a cryptocurrency investment, you need to be aware that it's oftentimes not based on, the valuation is oftentimes not based on the cash flow being produced, but in reality is just being based on some appreciation of the price that you hope will happen and may not. So it gets back to, we want people to be aware of the risks of these investments and be aware of what they're getting themselves into before they get into it.
For more information and tips on investing, visit com.ohio.gov.
We are back with Protecting What Matters. I'm your host, Andy Ellinger, and we are here with Dale Schulte, with the Assistant Bureau Chief for the Division of the State Fire Marshal's Fire Prevention Bureau. We're going to continue our conversation. It wouldn't be a fire prevention discussion if we didn't talk about smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. These are vital for early detection of fires and CO leaks. How often should these alarms be tested and maintained, and why is it crucial to follow these recommendations?
So it's always a good idea to check our smoke alarms. Keep in mind that our smoke alarms do have a born-on date. If you flip over the bottom of the smoke alarm, there is a date on there. That's the manufacturer's date. Smoke alarms are only good for approximately 10 years from manufacturer's date. That doesn't mean that you can just put them on the ceiling and forget about them. We still need to test those every month, simply by pushing the button, make sure they activate, and go from there. Now, if you have the smoke alarms that still have the 9-volt batteries, we want to make sure we're changing those at least twice a year. Good time to do that's when we change the time. We just did that, so hopefully everybody's already got that done for the springtime. Also, if they have the 10-year battery, that doesn't mean forget about them for 10 years. We still have to test them once a month just to make sure that they are activated. It's one of those things that it's there when you need it, but we don't want to neglect it to remember that it is there and we have to maintain it. So,
and we just want to be gentle when we're cleaning it, right?
Right. Just make sure that you keep the dust off it, dust them down, those kind of things. So if they don't activate, when you press the test button, make sure we're replacing them.
I'm guessing there's no maximum number of alarms in a house, but what's kind of a minimum number that you think should be in a house?
So, we typically recommend one on each level of your home and outside your sleeping areas. So it's really dependent on what your individual residence looks like as to how many you should have. Like you said, you can never have too many. There's all kinds of variations of them. There's some that are combined with carbon monoxide alarms. Then there's some that are interconnected. So if one goes off, they all go off. The technology is really developing in that field, and it's really what your safety comfort is. If you cannot, if anybody in Ohio cannot afford them, please visit their local fire department, because we partner with the local fire departments to provide smoke alarms for those that cannot afford them.
Yeah, that's true. We've had some saves recently where that program was that safe.
Project Sound Off is the one you're referring to. Is that's a program for second and third graders, but we do have Project Safe, as smoke alarms for everyone. We partner with local fire departments to give them a seed stock of smoke alarms, so to speak, so they can provide those to their residents.
Yeah, and they pay dividends. People
They do.
People are saved.
They do.
That's great. Spring weather is a good time to practice that home escape plan. What is the best practice for families?
Right. A home escape plan is just that. It's in the event of an emergency, such as a fire. Does everybody know how they're going to get out of their house? Do you have 2 exits from every room you're in? More importantly, do we have a meeting place, a safe meeting place for the entire family, for the entire property? For example, that needs to be like a fixed object, maybe the oak tree in the front yard. So that everybody's going to that one spot as kind of a rendezvous point to get together to make sure that everybody's accounted for. Folks that have kids in school, they already do that. They do their fire drills at school. They go out to the same spot every time. The teacher counts them. We need to do that at home as well, and practice that. We need to practice that. You can never practice too much, but, I say at least a couple of times a year, make sure that we physically go through the motions. It's a muscle memory thing. We want to make sure that the more we practice, the better we get, like anything else.
And it's important for all ages, but it's critically important if you have very young kids, very old folks living there, or maybe even disabilities, correct?
Right, and that's something that we don't often think about. It's those that are have those challenges, right? If we have somebody that is in a wheelchair, okay, how are they exiting? Do we have a plan? is somebody there to assist them? If we have young children, do they know where to go, or is there somebody that we can, how do we do that? It's all things that need to be part of your escape plan. If you have questions, as your individual, situation, reach out to your local fire department. We have fire safety educators all the way across the state that are happy to help, to look at individual escape plans and give ideas, such as if you're a second floor bedroom, do you have an escape ladder? Have you practiced with that ladder? It's one of those things that if you have an escape ladder, but the 5-year-old child's never seen it, never touched it, in the event of a fire, they're probably not wanting to do that because they're scared. So we want to practice those things to make sure that we're all familiar with how that's going to go.
That's probably true with fire extinguishers too.
Yep.
We should not only know where they are, but how to use them.
Sure. Fire extinguishers is one of those things that, if you ask, 9 out of 10 Ohioans, they probably say it's under the kitchen sink.
That's where I have mine.
Right. But is that something you pull out every day? No, the soap you pull out, the dishwasher soap, this, that, never. And that extinguisher keeps migrating its way to the back.
Yeah.
So in the event of emergency, now you got to pull all this other stuff out to get to that fire extinguisher. It's a good idea to get that out. Make sure, read the little gauge on it. There's going to be a little gauge that has a needle that says recharge, or it's good in the middle, like in the green. Typically red on both sides or green in the middle. It is kind of a quick indication to let you know that it is in good shape. Those do need replaced from time to time. If you're replacing your smoke alarms, you're in the same aisle at your big box store. You're in the same aisle, and it's a good time to just go ahead and pick up a new fire extinguisher as well.
Now, is there a minimum number of those that you should have in the house?
I don't think there's a minimum number. I think the minimum number is one, right? You should at least have one. But I think you meant maximum number. There's really no maximum number. It's just, where you feel appropriate, to use that. I personally have one in the house, and I have one in the garage, and I have one in my shop, so it's within quick grabbing distance of anywhere that I may need it.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, it's springtime. It's a time for a fresh start. We really hope that all Ohioans do not smoke, but if they do, there is some fire information they need to know, some life-saving fire fatality information they need to know. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Smoking, it's approximately 40% of all of our fatalities in Ohio can be attributed to smoking. In one way or another, smoking on oxygen leads that charge. Okay. We want to make sure that, if there is a smoker in the household, that, and somebody on oxygen, that we're not in the same room. Okay. If you are on oxygen, you still smoke, we want to make sure we, take that oxygen off, leave the room, possibly even go outside, to smoke before returning back, to that room. Those two don't go together. We want to make sure that we are keeping that as much separate as we can. Also, we'll make sure we're not smoking while we're tired or, under the influence of medications or, other things, and definitely not while we're in bed. We don't smoke when we're in bed. We want to be alert. I'm not telling you not to smoke. I'm just saying make sure that we're doing it safely. Discarding your materials in safe containers. Make sure that it's running underwater, properly extinguished, all of those things.
And there's a life-saving device that you can, if you smoke, if you have oxygen, there's a life-saving device that you can have installed on your oxygen that could save your life in the event that something occurs. Can we talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, they're called thermal fuses. Okay, it's not going to prevent a fire, but what it will do is, if in the event of a fire, it shuts off the flow of oxygen to the person that's using the oxygen. So it's just a simple little device installed in line with the tubing. So that if they're in the event of a fire, it will shut the oxygen off, so it won't have an oxygen-fueled fire at that point. You can get those from your local fire department. They can partner with our office. We'll bring them out to them, and they can, get those devices for Ohioans.
Yeah, or even ask your provider, your medical provider,
right,
to make sure that those are installed.
Right,
it's your life.
Yep, so they're also available online. You can purchase them yourself. There's a multitude of places that you can get them.
Well, we've touched on a lot of different things today around spring cleaning and fire safety and fire prevention. Is there anything else we should discuss around this topic today?
It's just always just a good time just to review everything, fire related. We typically look at October as fire prevention month, right? I really wish that was a fire prevention year, right? We need to do that, 365 days a year, make sure that we are, fire safe. And a good rule of thumb is, just picking up after yourself when you're done. If you work on a project, put things away. If you fuel up the lawnmower, put the gas can back where it belongs. All of those little things, just a little effort once in a while can go a long ways to fire safety. Fire safety does not have to be a hard thing. It doesn't have to be a time-consuming thing. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. It's just something that we need to constantly be aware of. It's in our everyday life to make sure that we're doing things the right way.
That's great. I'd like to thank Dale Schulte, the Assistant Bureau Chief for the Division of State Fire Marshal's Fire Prevention Bureau, for joining me today. Thank you very much for your time today on this critically important issue.
Thank you.
The Division of State Fire Marshal is leading the charge in educating Ohioans on how simple, proactive steps can significantly lower fire risks within their homes. Through this conversation, we explored how making minor adjustments to your spring cleaning checklist can lead to a safer living environment, underlining the State Fire Marshal's commitment to not just preventing fires, but increasing safe practices and awareness among Ohio residents. For more information on the Division of State Fire Marshal's Prevention Bureau, visit our website, com.ohio.gov/fire.